All right, so you'll need to borrow money or purchase a townhouse or house. Before you look at that, you want to know the maximum you should be able to borrow and the maximum you should be able to spend for either a townhouse or a house. So in general, you should borrow no more than twice your annual gross income. So this is a little bit different than that 28% rule. So because obviously they're more expensive. Okay, so you would like to buy a townhouse or a house that appreciates in value. So this is why a lot of people buy real estate and make money that way. So the more the appreciation, the higher the future value of the townhouse or house. Now you may say, how come that didn't happen with a condominium? Because it doesn't. Condominiums tend to not increase, except for like cost of living or like standard, that kind of stuff. They don't increase as much as a house does. But the maximum amount you want to borrow is twice your annual gross income. All right, the maximum amount to spend is that amount borrowed plus any savings. All right, so you have saved $15,000 to buy a townhouse. Your annual gross income is $61,700. What's the maximum you should be able to borrow? So, and the maximum you'd be able to spend. So, the maximum you'd be able to borrow is this $61,700 doubled. So, the most you can go in and borrow is $123,400. So, we haven't talked about credit too much, but when you go into a bank to get a loan, you may or may not qualify based on your credit. So you really want to keep up your on-time payments and all that good stuff. Otherwise, you might need a cosigner, and then that might involve a parent or a aunt, uncle, or cousin or friend. A maximum amount to spend is the $123,400 plus your savings. So a lot of people save before they buy a place because you need something not only for the down payment, but to show, like the bank especially, they're not going to just hand over $125,000 unless they can show, you can show that you can save and pay that back. All right. So you have $138,400 to spend. And obviously, if you save the whole thing, then you're not borrowing. So most of us borrow to buy a first home or townhome. All right, here's Fred. He'd like to buy a house. He earns $59,200 a year. So we're going to double that for $118,400. He saved $10,000. So if he gets a loan for $118,400, so that's what I'm saying. Like he's going to borrow that from the bank, plus the amount that he's saved. And sometimes, that might only include closing costs, which we're kind of talking about towards the end of this chapter. So this is $128,400. All right, so does that make sense? So when he's looking for townhouses, or this is the you, are looking, that's like your price point that you're looking for. And if you're like, no, I wanna save some more, then you can do that. Just know that in the meantime, things are kicking up as well. All right, Marge would like to buy a townhouse. She earns $1,125 per week. So what we have to do with that is multiply it by a 52-week a year. So be really careful on your test. If they're given per week, per month, per week, or per 2 weeks. Thank you. So then you have to take that amount times 52. So that's $58,500. Okay, double that. So 58,500 doubled is 117,000. So she can spend that 117,000 plus the 17, lots of 77s around here, the 17,000 that she saved. So she can borrow 134. Or spend, sorry. So this is a really loose kind of formula here. They'll take in other things, again, like your credit score, if you have other loans outstanding, maybe you have a car loan. So there's a whole risk analysis getting a loan, but in the simplest of terms, typically you can borrow up to twice your annual income. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to pay it in 2 years, because obviously you have other expenses, but it's kind of a formula that they used, especially based on that 28% piece with rent. Okay, so go ahead and do 4 and 5 on your own there. I'm just stamping number 4 and 5. No, in here. Okay. No, just right there. Just our notes. Make sure you're on the right track. This is what you're supposed to be doing right now. Too high. Oops, sorry. Too high. Too low, I mean. So I can appreciate you guys working ahead, but I would like you to be with me on notes so that you can like actually understand what's happening. So that's what I was stamping there. Let me unfreeze. Okay, so here's Raphael earns $42.50 per month. So that's why you have to multiply it by 12. And has $20,000 in his savings. So double the 51,000 to get 102, add the 20,000 in savings, and then that's where he can spend 122. Okay, so a couple of you were low, a couple of you were high, and a couple of you didn't have anything. So let's be with us, ask questions, use your calculator, but that one is kind of cute numbers. This one, she makes that per month. So Karen is going to take 3,500 times 12 to get 42,000, double it, but there's no savings here to add, to contribute. Okay. Any questions before I scoot? All right, so number 6, we're almost done. We have a chart. They would like to buy a house, so they have saved $23,000. So I could kind of get ahead of the game here. Terry earns $34,500 per year, so they went ahead and just did that whole annual for that person. $34,500. So like my husband and I get paid on the 15th and the 30th, but he gets paid bi-weekly, so he'll get 2 extra paychecks a year, and then mine are more per paycheck, you know, if we made the same amount of money. Okay, so then Frank here, so here's the annual per year, and then you have to work this one out per month. So this is going to be Frank. So this is going to be Terry, and this will be Frank. So you have to multiply 12 months, 45, 25. Okay? So make sure you don't multiply this times 12. That means that they would make, you know, $500,000. Or $250,000, I guess. Okay, so that comes out to be $88,800. So they're combining this. You know, all these other people were single. But this, when you combine it, then the bank has a different formula, because then that's 2 people that are joining, whether you buy with a spouse or you buy with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and that means that you're both contributing, so you might qualify for a bigger loan. So $88,800 times 2 is $177,600. And then the maximum they can spend is $177,600 plus the 23. I already put that in for savings. So $200,600. Okay, so there's like your first home or whatever. Then the nice part, let's say so I go buy my first $200,000 home, and I live there for 10 years. So then I'm able to sell it for, you know, typically things appreciate. Sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll almost like, you know, go like a half. But let's just be conservative. And now it's worth $250,000. Okay? So you've already paid a little bit of this back, and you still have this. So when you get the check after they buy your house for $250,000, you've already made a $50,000 profit, plus you had this, plus you paid a little bit of this. So now let's say you have $100,000 to put as a down payment on your next place. So that's why people tend to have to kind of keep spending their money, because otherwise you'll get taxed on that $50,000 that you made. So unless you reinvest it in a home or like an annuity or what have you, stocks, you're going to get taxed on that profit of $50,000. So that's the way the world works. But anyway, that's how you're able to. That's how couples tend to go bigger and bigger. or single people, but usually you see it with families as they grow. All right, so the appreciation so remember, appreciation, the cost or the value of the home is increasing. Depreciation, it's decreasing. Alrighty, so if this home is $225,000 and it's appreciating at 5% rate, so when you put that on your calculator, you're going to take this times 1.05. So we haven't had this too much. When you, that's already that percent. So you're going to kick that over 1.2. All right, so on your calculator, you're going to hit 0.0105. Put that a little bit darker. So in 1 year, you've like kind of earned a profit, if you will, of $2,362. So now this value of this home, you're going to add these two, is going to be $227,362. I'm just kind of doing this in my head because my calc is out there. 50. All right. Now, some homes, depending on the area, they might make 5 or 10%, and that's beautiful, right? It's like money, free money. So remember, when this is 0.45%, so you have to kick that over. So you're going to multiply this one by 0.0045. So this one isn't going up by as much, and it's also worth less. Worth less, not worthless. So now next year, this house is worth this. This is what Zillow always tries to do with homes. So you're going to multiply this times 0.011, just in case you can't see that. 132.30. Then I got to add these two. 94,877.30. So you like, even if you just are sitting in your house, so like if you put in your address, all right, if you put in like any old address into Zillow, I used to have the app, I don't know if I do anymore, but anyways, it'll tell you what that house value is worth. And it's not an exact science. It just kind of shows you what that is, where that's at. So it's kind of fun if you want to put in your house. You can kind of see what it's worth. And if you want to say to your parents, like, or grandparents, or when I say parents, I mean whoever you live with. You know, when I'm using examples, I don't want anyone to feel like, you know, if you live with grandma. So to get started, oh yeah, this is not going to like me. So I'm just going to put in an address. Let's put in like, oh, my mom's next door neighbor just sold. Let me put in that one. So that'll tell you what, you know, that so it last sold in 1980 for $65K, and then it'll tell you like, hey, it just sold, it's off the market. But they'll be like, this isn't probably the best example. Oh, but I mean 1980, that's a long time, right, to live there. But they'll tell you like, give or take, what you what the value would be. All right, so we could see what that, it sold for more than that, I'm not going to lie. But that is, so this, there, and they'll kind of guesstimate like what those properties go for. So like that's, it's just kind of like a unique area that they live in Chicago where I grew up. But when they sold, I was like, holy cow. But my mom's not going anywhere. But anyways, that's how you can kind of see what it is. Now, if we look at a lesser one, let me look at my niece. Where did she? My niece she's selling on Friday. So she's in Wicker Park. So I'm gonna have to really think about that. Where's my apartment that used to be? Anyway, I probably lost y'all, but that's just kind of a cool thing that you can do. You know, here's Naperville. I don't know this area, but I'll just kick it. So it'll give you like a guesstimation. So like this one is 720, sold for 657. So right now it's estimated at 720. So this is probably a good example of this particular home. So you can see like how much that's going in Naperville. Naperville is a pretty lucrative place to live too. You know, house values go up because their education system is so good. So you're always going to find families that want to buy your house. But if you're looking at to see like if that's going, what that's increasing by, you can divide that out. So do like a 657. So this is increasing at a rate of 9.5%, which is an incredible rate back on your money. So if you just buy a house, this is why people flip houses, right? They just buy it, whether or not they fix it up. But even if they just live there for a year or two, if you're making 10 or 20%, that's a really good return on your money. So anyway, that's what this means to appreciate. So hopefully that wasn't too boring. And if you want to put in your own home, I always keep that map of Orland Park over there. It's kind of interesting to see where you live. And then you can put that into on the internet and see what that's increasing. So remember, you take what it's worth now and let's say it went the other way. Let's say it was 650 divided by 720. Now it's decreasing. It's depreciating at a 91% rate. So if you keep living there, you know, for 10 more years, you could take your 657 that you bought it at times like 0.9, and then depending on how many more years you stay, now allegedly if that kept depreciating, you're going to earn that. Whereas if it's going the other way, times 1.1 to the fifth, now you're going to make $1 million or sell it for $1 million. Remember, I didn't add the 3 zeros, that's why. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of people love housing and realty, especially people who are handy or they're, you know, have an eye for, you know, interior design and flip houses. Now the kicker is interest rates. I'm sure you've heard about that. Interest rates these days are like, you know, 6-7%, whereas they used to be 3%. So even though you're making 10%, if you have a loan, you have to pay back 7%. So now you're only making 3%, but it's better than 1%. So there's a lot of math involved if you're going to invest in a home. All right, I'll turn this off and